Okay, so this is gonna be a little bit of a Hail Mary recording because we're at just over 100 followers, about 122 followers, and our goal is to get to 500 followers by November 22nd in 11 days. So I'm hoping this video will do it. At least will help us part of the way. So I'm going to be talking about today, The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon, which honestly, no joke, uh, is now my favorite book. Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky was my favorite book for many, many years. It's probably now almost 10 years, my favorite book. And I keep on coming close to it, keep on coming close to it, the various books that I've read. But this book, from beginning to end, and that's thick, kept my attention and kept me keep on saying, like, I think within a fourth of the book, I was like, this might be my favorite book. Halfway through, I think this is my favorite book. Three quarters, I was like, this is most definitely probably gonna be my favorite book. And then up until the last page, I was like, perfect ending. So I want to kind of give you a little bit of a overall view, different pointers with the book and the synopsis, and then finally I'm gonna do a little bit of a book club questionnaire thing. So Michael Chabon, as a writer, is known for mixing literary fiction with genres like mystery, fantasy, and adventure. And his writing often explores themes of identity, family, and complexity of relationships, which is maybe why I appreciated it. Like Crime and Punishment is definitely the complexity of emotions, relationships, and stuff like that. This book actually won the 2001 Pulitzer Prize for Fiction, which marked it as one of the defining novels of the early 2000s, which is crazy. 2001, I was like 11. So it's crazy that it's so old, and I just found out about it. This was given to me as a present on my birthday, um, and I finished it within like a month. Probably last 3 weeks, and it's a thick book. This book was inspired by the golden age of comics. It's pretty much mostly in the 1930s, 1940s. Um, and Chabon definitely has a deep respect for the genre, and even worked on actual comic book scripts afterward, not surprisingly. And the end of the book, he gives a lot of credit to different books that he read to learn about it, which was really cool. I like that. There's a lot of research on Jewish heritage. So there was a lot of integration in this book of Jewish themes and history, um, especially World War II. Jewish experience quite strong, quite powerful, and there was a lot of weaving in of real historical figures and real events, which was pretty cool. So it was kind of like quite historical fiction, I would say. There was a big theme of magic and escapism. The character of Joe Cavalier is a trained magician and escape artist, and he symbolizes the theme of escape. Definitely not just physically. It's quite almost explicitly written to be metaphorical. He escapes Nazi occupied Europe and then grapples with his cultural identity quite extremely. Um, there's a lot of complex characters. Sam Clay and Joe Cavalier's relationship definitely has a lot of ambition, love, family, sexuality is big, very important. Um, and there's cameos by real life figures, which cameos are usually on like TV shows like Curb Your Enthusiasm, but there was like really cool cameos of like Salvador Dali, Orson Welles, and a few other famous personalities, um, which definitely made it feel more nonfictiony in a good way. You know, it's as soon as you have a character like Salvador Dali walking his, what was it, anteater or something down New York Fifth Ave. You definitely don't have to do a lot of character development with Salvador Dali. Um, so let's do a quick synopsis. First, the setup. So the novel follows two Jewish cousins, Joe Cavalier and Sam Clay. That's why it's called Cavalier and Clay. And it follows them in New York City during the late 30s and early 40s. Joe is a recent refugee from Nazi occupied Prague, and he's a very talented artist, while Sam is an aspiring writer with a passion for comic book industry, which at that time was not popular or respected whatsoever. So then they created, Joe Cavalier and Sam Clay created a comic book with a character called the Escapist. The Escapist is a superhero that kind of mirrors a little bit of Joe's kind of obviously the escapist part because Joe also learns about magic and escapism from a famous magician in Prague. But the escapist also is all about Joe's longing for justice and freedom, especially against Hitler, which at the time in New York, a lot of people were not that on board with fighting against Hitler. The U.S. joined World War II pretty late in the game. So Joe kind of being in New York and his family being left behind in Prague had like this big emotional feeling towards Hitler and Nazi Germany. And he tried to express it through the escapist. And this character becomes this symbol of resistance and hope. And yeah, so a lot of themes of escape in this book. Joe has a lot of survivor's guilt, and it causes him because he's in New York, and his family is in Prague under Nazi regime, and most likely suffering. He doesn't really know all the time. And he has like survivor's guilt and he has a constant desire to rescue his family from Europe. And he basically channels this pain into his work with Sam. So he's like a workaholic to the max because this is his way of helping his family. So as their comic book career takes off, Sam also contends with his own personal struggles, which includes being gay in a during a time that it's very not popular being gay. Um, and some would say like a career wrecker. Uh, lot of lot of themes of personal war and personal loss. So as World War II looms, it affects both Joe and Sam very differently. Joe enlists in the army, leaving behind his art, his newfound love, and also his unresolved feelings about his family's fate. Um, yeah, the joining the army part is quite complex because he was pretty much about to be married to his girlfriend at the time, and they were quite close. And then finally, there's the resolution and reconciliation toward the end. So Joe returns to New York. Um, Maybe I don't want to reveal this just in case, you know, I don't want to spoiler alert it too much. Um, Although, why not? This could be meant for a person who's like read the book already. You can kind of skip over this part or just stop listening to it after this part and just skip to the questions at the end. Um, so Joe returns to New York and a lot of complexity because Sam and his girlfriend and Sam is and Joe's girlfriend have been living with each other the whole time with their son, but that son is actually Joe's son, and Sam is gay. So therefore, they were living together, pretending to be a married couple the entire time, raising their son. And Sam actually did raise this Joe's son, and would pretty well, given despite not having like an actual relationship or like a romantic relationship with Joe's ex girlfriend or a girlfriend or whatever. Although it was kind of cute the way it was written, because they still like joked together and they were like very friendly, kind of like a best friend kind of relationship. Um, and definitely a lot of awkward situations with the boy and figuring out pretty quickly that Joe is his father, and he also wanted to do magic. That's Joe's son, um, and how that resolved itself, and Sam going away to leaving the family and going to California like he wanted to do, um, with his boyfriend at the time before the war started. Anyway, so let's do five great book club questions. Okay. So, number one, how does the theme of escape manifest in the lives of Joe and Sam? And what does it reveal about their struggles and aspirations? So, escape is different for both of them, as Joe is very good at escaping. He has no problems with escaping. He escaped from Prague, and then he escaped from a lot of different magic tricks. He even performed in front of bar mitzvahs and did escape tricks there. And then finally, escaped to enlist in the army in South in Antarctica, which that whole scene of things happening in Antarctica was pretty crazy, especially with everybody dying and dogs and stuff like that. So, Joe definitely has no problems escaping. Sam has a lot of problems escaping. I guess if you mean if escape is escaping from or rebelling, Sam pretty much has a lot of troubles escaping, and I guess he escapes with his. He always had boyfriends while being married to Joe's girlfriend, so he escaped and slept with all those men and stuff like that. But at the very end, he finally escapes to California to be his true self, which is a gay man. Um, second question: how do you think the comic book industry, as depicted in the novel, reflects the broader societal and historical issues of the 30s and 40s? Yeah, I mean it's a very conservative time. Not only was comic books not popular, being Jewish and being even Italian at that time or anything or Irish at the time was very difficult. Um, it was a time of a lot of outright racism, not even like triggers or words or violence, but like complete racism, you know, again, towards even Italians and Irish people at that time. Um, n- Not surprising against Jewish people. So Jews are always under attack. Um, and Yeah, it's a very conservative time. Kind of like fresh out of the 20s, because like 20s was like very like it was conservative, but at the same time is also like the roaring 20s. Woo. And then the 30s and 40s are like the leftovers of the Great Depression, where people were kind of like very careful not to make mistakes. So there's a lot of carefulness not to make mistakes, and you could say the comic book industry could have been like the cryptocurrency Bitcoin of the time. It's like, ooh, should we do this? Should we do that? Um, so in what ways does Chabon use the character of the escapist to represent the personal battles and political realities of the era? Um, yeah, I mean, so the escapist symbolized kind of the most extreme in the beginning political view in the U.S. and in New York, even in New York, which was just saying no to Hitler and being very blunt about it. Um, so that's like the political realities. It was not a popular time to say that. There's a lot of Germans, if you think about it, in the U.S. and New York at the time, and some of them were for not maybe not Hitler towards the end, but some of them for sure were for Hitler at the end, but definitely in the beginning. And like Germany was not in a good spot many years before Hitler. After World War One, there was quite a struggle. That's why a lot of Germans came over. But they had family back in Germany, and they knew they were suffering. And then this guy Hitler comes along and kind of um, changes things for the better for their country politically and economically. So there's no surprise that there's a lot of Germans that were supporting um, Hitler and the Nazi Party, and uh, there's definitely Nazi supporters in the U.S. And the concentration camps were not exactly a common knowledge thing up until the very end. There was Jewish ships that came to New York and they were like rejected. And I think at that time they still didn't know about the concentration camps. So yeah, it was definitely an interesting time. So the escapist did represent that like extreme political person. Um, how does Chabon handle the themes of identity and family in the novel? What do Joe and Sam's family histories tell us about their personalities and choices? Yeah, so I mean, Joe and Sam's family are very different. Sam definitely has a very powerful mother figure. Um, Joe comes from a very well off and respected family in Prague and has like a very good relationship with his parents and siblings. Um, and and Joe's also separated and has this again survivor guilt. Um, and that pretty much controls his life. Meanwhile, Sam's mom is like overbearing and like just stereotypical Jewish mother, like very stereotypical, so in his stuff, and being gay and not ever bring back a girl is tough in any household. But imagine having a very difficult mother down your throat all the time. Um, yeah, so it's no doubt why they have these different personalities. Joe also kind of is a much better looking person than Sam. I'm sure that affects their personalities. Last question. What role does sexuality and the exploration of identity play in Sam Clay's character arc? And how does his journey resonate with the novel's broader themes of authenticity and self discovery? Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that Sam can't be himself earlier. I mean, in some ways, it's a matter of just reality, so I don't blame him. Um, I think a lot of I think a lot of gay people at the time, up until relatively recently, even in the 90s, it was commonplace to just make fun of each other in a joking way, or you're so gay. Like growing up, definitely heard it, and I'm sure I've said it. Um, and so this is like 60 years earlier. So him not being able to be his true self and pretending, it's difficult. Um, like authenticity, ugh, yeah, it was a hard time to be authentic, and you definitely felt for Sam, especially when he had to like basically stop his relationship with that buff dude. Forget his name. Very buff dude, the actor, very good looking actor. It was sad, and he went to California, and Sam didn't, and Sam instead is raising a kid with his cousin's girlfriend and pretending to be her husband and raising this kid. I mean, in a way, it's tragic. In a way, it's beautiful, especially when Joe comes back and like Sam, you know, he that's like a mitzvah and a half. Mitzvah is like a Jewish good thing to do, like a blessing, I guess you could say. Um, so yeah, I mean that's why this book is like I think so good because there's a lot of complex things happening. So you have like World War II, which for a setting is quite extreme. You have New York, which is always a cool place to be. You have a good mix of like comic books, magic, which is always cool. Um, you have some extreme personalities happening. The cousin relationship, being gay during that time, and then just like the little vignettes, like I said, Joe being in Antarctica. That alone is like such a cool short story of what happened in Antarctica, and it's where Michael Chabon kind of definitely showed to me his like writing prowess. It was kind of like a master class in historical fiction writing. Such a great mix of history, um, which I have other videos, or we have other videos on this channel about that, about history and how it's really nice. Um, but yeah, we're gonna have a discussion with the other two people in this book club with Ilya and Marina when they're done reading it. It's a long book, and it's like 600 something pages, and I started it earlier, and there was a kind of like a mismatch, which is one of the reasons why we have this book club is for people to be part of a book club without all the logistical nightmares of being in a book club. It is very difficult to kind of be in a book club and be with other people in a book club. So this is your opportunity to be in a book club, and definitely in the comment section is the best place to be. Put your thoughts. We have a really good video with Alexander Dugan, and it had like over 100 comments. And in the comments, I learned so much. And so put your thoughts in the comments of this book. You hated this book. I want to know why. You loved it. Probably less for us to argue about, or something in the middle. Like it was kind of like, oh, I didn't like this. I like this. I like that. Regardless, put that in the comments. Let's see what you got. But yeah, thank you, Async Book Club listeners. Hopefully, this video brings us from 122 followers to 500 in like a week. Let's see what you can do. Peace.